Hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar, Seer 365 Sessions, Mastering Real-Time Cash and Liquidity Using AI. This is a continuation, a bit of a sequel webinar, if you will, following on from our last webinar with Carlos from MBAT last week. Carlos very, very kindly walked us through the MBAT Treasury solution, which has advanced functionality around cash management, bank connectivity, and enhanced reporting. Carlos, do you want to introduce yourself?
Of course, great to be here again, Rufus, and thanks for having us. So Carlos here, I'm one of MBAT's co-CEOs and co-founders. Really enjoyed the last webinar where we could kind of walk through our platform, what our mission as a company is, and how we help finance teams. I'm very excited as well to get today into a more Q&A session with you around how MBAT can help sort of Microsoft ecosystem, who is our target customer, and effectively what trends do we see in the market that are emerging, so as to why MBAT could be valuable for some of these customers.
Thanks, Carlos. And MBAT are one of the most exciting ISVs around using some of the latest technologies for treasury management. So I'm really excited to be able to kind of get into the weeds today, use a little bit of your expertise and kind of understanding the importance of cash management. I mean, on that topic, could you kind of tell us a little bit about what you're seeing today around how businesses are managing their cash and what perhaps isn't, optimal with that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and sometimes I think a very widely misunderstood concept, right? Many people, when we talk about cash management, liquidity management, cash optimization, pooling solutions, kind of spook themselves, right? They seem to these terms only should apply for mega large listed businesses. But indeed, this is not the case. Cash management is something that is critical for businesses at I would say every stage. I would argue at every stage, but especially for these medium to large size businesses that we target. So you obviously have all of the more treasury operational flows. You have your bank reconciliations, you have your payment flows, you have all of these flows that are mandatory and basically you have to do. There are ways to do them sort of in a more scalable manner and more automated manner. There are ways to do it in a more manual manner, and that can help you doing that. But when it comes to really take a step back, be a bit more strategic, think about if you're allocating cash correctly, if you have idle cash, if you have cash needs, how are you going to cover those? Not only knowing what your cash is right now, but what your cash is going to be, sort of to prevent potential unexpected cash needs is critical for every business, right? We see today macroeconomic environments are very volatile. We have FX markets, we have geopolitical risk, we have many sort of factors that are currently bombarding us, I guess, with new information, and it's kind of very hard to swallow all of that information, and all of that impacts cash, right? So if you are this kind of person that whenever they have to think about this cash, end up opening an Excel file, end up dumping a lot of data from one place to another, end up having to manually input a lot of data that you're not really sure if it's correct or not correct, probably you should start thinking if that is the right process and if that's the right way of managing such a critical process for your business, like having that cash visibility and allocating cash correctly is.
Geopolitical, what was the word? Geopolitical tension, I think, was the most polite way of kind of saying tariff lottery that I've come across in a while. I think in terms of the Microsoft partners that we work with as well, they're seeing a lot of those manual processes in their end customers, even today, where they maybe have quite modern ERPs. They're not necessarily going out there and integrating those ERPs with other data sources and cash sources as well. Just on that kind of topic, I mean, you mentioned obviously the natural financial tool, the Excel spreadsheet. But what are you seeing? Are there partners that are trying to do these integrations but maybe aren't doing them in the best way possible?
It's a great question, quite frankly, I think the world is, I think on a very positive manner, the way the world with the whole on cloud sort of movement, the whole now with obviously AI and all of the systems talking to each other, is moving towards a direction where potentially um, instead of going to a fulsome solution that can 50% cover all your needs in different sort of finance areas,
Mhm.
you're starting to see native connectivity or systems not operating in silos, but operating together to really make those end-to-end processes much more efficient than what they used to be, right? So we kind of are still a bit stuck in the past, whereby we think that we put an ERP in place, and then sort of everything has to be or done by the ERP or that has to be done manually. But
Yeah.
right now, sort of the whole ecosystem, and I think we are a perfect solution of how we found how good ERPs can be doing certain processes and how come bad they can be doing other processes, other non-core processes for them. And that's when I think having different systems operate into an end-to-end process that is automated and that is really helping your team reach those business goals is very important, right? So in our case, it's typically looking at businesses that have probably good controlling processes, have good accounting processes, but when it comes to this cash sort of visibility to really perform, or when you are actually taking those business or more treasury decisions, when it comes to intercompany payments, it comes to cash optimization, it comes to really providing those liquidity forecasts and really acting as a business partner for your business units, for your management teams, for everyone that need that information to take proper decisions, then it's typically a combination of Microsoft in this case plus Excel again, right? So Excel, which means slow decision making, it means it can make mistakes. You have to input data manually. It just obviously defeats the purpose, right? That's why what we do see is those partners and those partners that are you know going into customers with a big of a wider range of spectrum, not just being a sort of implementator itself, but being more of a consultant of really
Mm.
trying to understand end-to-end processes, really trying to understand where the team is spending more time and where the risks are identified from a leadership perspective, and being able to position a tool or a mix of tools that solve that in a very clear and structured process. I think those are really the ones that we are seeing sort of taking advantage of that positioning and really making noise in the market. We are very lucky to work with a couple of them that have seen the value of integrating our platform into a more core ERP offering or other systems. And I think with that with those type of partners are the ones that the customer ends up receiving the most value.
Awesome. No, I really appreciate that. Sorry for a couple of technical issues I've had there. Just seem to be dropping. I mean, Carlos, you're one of the original co-founders of MBAT, and I think you summarized it really well there. That idea that the best partners out there are searching for solutions and holistic solutions to how businesses are operating around these processes, rather than just a one-to-one ERP out of the gate. Similarly for MBAT, I mean, how did you kind of want to approach the market differently? What did you want to do to set yourself apart from other banking?
I think Rufus, you were about to say other banking sort of ISVs. Uh, Sorry for these technical issues.
I apologize. Sorry, did you get the end of my question?
I think I almost got it. So differentiate ourselves versus other sort of bank, I guess, integrator or ISVs that work with Microsoft was that kind of the question?
Exactly. Yeah.
Got it. So I mean, I kind of, and I'm relatively opinionated, I say on this. When people try to compare us with a bank integrator, I think they are getting like 2% of what we really do. Actually, when we actually receive requests of, hey, can you please just take my bank statements and push them into my accounting system for me to sort of do all of my reconciliation and stuff in my accounting system? That's not a typical use case that we see. And quite frankly, that's not a typical use case that we see saving time to customers. Obviously, dumping the data and receiving the data from multiple sources and sort of syncing that into the Microsoft ecosystem obviously generates value or generates efficiencies, but there's much more into the reconciliation process. So when we think about MBAT, we think about more of a treasury ecosystem rather than just a specific functionality, right? We target the most critical and painful treasury processes. So we target bank reconciliations, but our native integration with F&O and Business Central doesn't only push the data into Business Central, it automatically generates the accounting postings or the ledgers in Business Central. So what we typically see is a customer uses a bank integrator to push the data in and then uses Microsoft functionality to sort of do the booking of those bank statements. That gets you to a 50, 60, 70% automation in best cases. When systems use our bank reconciliation functionality, which is bank integration plus posting automation from MBAT, you typically get to a 95, 97% integration or automation level when you do bank recs. So let's just, or one, I think a common mistake that we think is that if you just dump the data in, it's done and it's automated. That's not the case, I think, and I think our AI function, tell me, we spoke about it in the last webinar, is something that really helps understanding how the user behaves, understanding behavioral patterns on how the postings are made to really get those automation levels much higher. So the key functionality or the basic functionality that we sort of compete with bank feeds, we kind of have added an extra layer of value on top that customers that use us really appreciate. But the treasury world is much more than just inputting bank feeds. I'm sure many of the partners who are listening today here have had multiple requests on not only pushing data from the banks into Microsoft, but the other way around, pushing data from Microsoft into the banks. So building that connectivity, building a standardized and a secure payment signing process, whereby paying from every bank follows the same process, follows internal policies, follows the right approvals, follows the right payment monitoring, follows a very strict payment reconciliation process with your statement and with your ledger, sort of doing, again, that end-to-end process. We couldn't do it alone. But what we've actually thought about is how can we embed ourselves into an ecosystem, a very powerful ecosystem such as Microsoft, use capabilities that they do pretty well, use our capabilities, use banking capabilities, and build that end-to-end process that is really what the customer is looking for. And to be able to spot this kind of opportunities is really important to get to understand how we can, first of all, how the systems interact, and secondly, how the customer today manages those processes. Because as many times happens, when you talk to a customer, they tell you, no, that process is automated. But when you dig a little bit deeper and you go a bit further, there is definitely an opportunity to work with.
That's really interesting. And I really like the fact that you take a very, very holistic approach with all.
I think we lost Rufus again.
I apologize. All I can promise is I'll jump back into the call as soon as I am able. I think you take a really nice holistic approach. And if you ever want to go into webinar hosting software, Carlos, I'd love for you to do that as well. But I guess what I wanted to drill in as well was, on the last call, we covered off the fact that there are a few different modules that MBAT use. Which ones do you find with your existing customer base today are the most popular?
Yeah, I'll tailor even that question to sort of our Microsoft practice, which I think probably is more useful for the call.
Awesome.
I think it's actually three of them that do the most, or that typically the combination between the Microsoft sort of F&O or Business Central plus Embed give the better result for the customer. So the first one, most importantly, is cash flow forecasting. As we said, is as important for business to know exactly what cash is right now to what cash is going to be in the next days, weeks, or months.
Hmm.
And it's not a matter only of businesses that are running on tight cash. We typically make the mistake, or we incorrectly assume that cash flow forecasting is just an exercise that has to be done by businesses that don't have cash. But it's actually the other way around. The best treasurers in the world are actually people that are looking to optimize that excess cash, that idle cash, that are looking to allocate funds correctly among entities, among currencies, among products. So it's an exercise that is really, it can be really accretive for a P&L of a business. It can really generate impact. So on a cash flow forecasting side, there's information in Business Central that is useful, or in F&O. There's information on banks, obviously, that is useful because you need your actual position. There's information that is nowhere and that AI can be helpful at generating. So a system that sort of feeds all of that information to make updating processes very manual, very automatic, sorry, but also that knows how to fill in the gaps instead of you
Hmm.
manually having to fill them, but filling the gaps manually, or at least suggesting how those gaps should be filled, is typically something that the customers value a lot. Because again, many scattered or many data sources from different places, bringing them together, reconciling them, and filling in those gaps is an exercise that in Excel takes a lot of time. Second module is our obviously our automated reconciliation. As we said, divided in two different sub modules. We have a full bank statement reconciliation module that's end-to-end automation of reconciling bank statements into your ledger. We do the posting, we do the reconciliation, we use AI to make that as automatic as possible. And then we also do the same with PSPs. So for all of those businesses that collect money through payment processors, different currencies, different payment processors in different countries, gets messy. It becomes relatively hard to match your orders or your revenue with your actual collections. You have refunds, you have fees. The typical case study or the typical problem that a customer says, I have a net settlement in my bank that has nothing to do with my revenues of the day. How do I reconcile these two numbers? Well, again, going to the right sources, integrating the right systems, it's
Yeah.
a completely automatic and a workflow that we also do. So that's another part that customers typically value a lot. And then obviously, finally, our payment processing. So payments, typically, many of the payment instructions are generated in accounting systems. But again, there are other payments that are generated outside accounting. You have treasury payments, you have intercompany payments, you have advanced payments, you have urgent payments. Treasury teams are flooded with kind of requests left, right, and center, different teams asking to us to pay one supplier or the other. So at the end, if you don't have a place that can, again, feed information from Microsoft, feed information from other systems, feed information manually, and then from that single source of truth, action a homogeneous and a centralized payment process through all of your banks, it again results typically in very high fraud risks, very high operational risk of humans not really or accidentally causing harm for the business. So
Mm.
it's really those critical processes that a combination to make that end-to-end process make sense, to make that end-to-end process secure, to make it as automated as possible, what is really going to make the difference, maybe not right now, but in the midterm for your businesses. If you are right now investing in those tools, if you are investing in innovation, if you are investing on scaling or making those processes scalable, as your business continues to scale, you won't be flooded with all of these manual tasks that won't allow you to adapt to what the business needs going forward. So it's I think that combination of the right processes with the right visibility and having everything work together, work as a team rather than as different silos, what makes the difference to really kind of go for a system or go for MBAT plus the Microsoft interface.
I mean, that was excellently described, because I think that even makes sense to a relatively finance noob like me. I mean, cash management and liquidity in uncertain times, the absolute lifeblood of the business, right? You need to know that you have enough money on hand to stay operational. Those finance processes, without a holistic tool and without single sources of the truth, become very manual, very, very time consuming. And where there are people that are using solutions like MBAT, how is that changing those finance teams' priorities? What is it maybe allowing them to do that they couldn't do before?
It's a great question. I'll answer with a specific example.
Sure.
One of obviously the key tasks of a treasury team or a finance team in general, because this task sometimes is a bit of blurry line of where do the payments sit. Sometimes the treasurers are the ones that action the payment. Sometimes there's a specific payment team. We see different setups, but you probably, when you want to make a payment, you want to know how much money is available in the account you want to make the payment from. If you don't have real-time connectivity to your banks and you have a tool that is actually going to launch that payment for you, but you don't have that real-time access, you will probably be making a payment relying on a balance that is outdated, or you're relying on a balance that is forecasted by you based on the expected inflows and outflows, but obviously things change and are not right. So a very critical process such as the payment process with real-time information has completely changed the way a treasury team thinks about that process. Because before having MBAT, you would have to do your morning treasury reconciliation, which many customers continue to do, but you would have to do it. You would have to rely on that forecast, on that daily forecast of inflows and outflows to understand what the expected balance of the account is going to be when you execute the payment. In MBAT, when you have real-time access to your account, you know exactly what the balance is the second before you actually execute the payment. We actually alert you if we think that there's no funds or there's not enough funds from your account to do a payment. That means that from a treasury allocation, treasury payment, and a treasury process, completely changed the process. Less manual, much more reliable, much more secure, and it's just having the information available. That's just one example, but again, moving from outdated data into real-time data, moving from data that is operating silos and that is not enriched to data that is enriched and that is sort of treated in a way that is useful for the business, helps you even reinvent or rethink if the processes that we've all seen working for the last couple of years and that everyone acts or treats like standard, if those are the right processes anymore. Because with this sort of innovation and these new technologies in place, there are processes that can definitely be disruptive, and there are many new processes I think that will be reshaped and rebuilt with this new technology.
I think that's I kind of came in at the end there, but I think that's really made a really good point of we live in an age of change with a huge amount of technological change, and finance teams and what they need to achieve, the challenges that they're going to face are all going to change as well. So you absolutely want to be armed with the latest and greatest on that front.
And I think that it's a great point. And I think when it comes to vendor selection and partner selection, this is every CFO and every client we speak to, this has to be paramount in your diligence process. Like the level of innovation, the level of the speed of change of things right now, I think it's never been in history. It's never been this case. Like I think we can all agree that treasury, how we see it right today, in 2 years is going to be completely different. Accounting probably the same. We are in the middle of a massive revolution. So the only thing I think you can do today is exercise real diligence and selecting partners that are truly investing in innovation. Partners that are, Microsoft, I think, is a great example. How they are sort of trying to embrace AI, how they are trying to embrace the rest of the technologies, how they are opening their ecosystem for players to actually collaborate with them, to actually add value to the customer, is a great example. But the first thing I always ask to, or I always challenge clients when we speak to them is when you are looking at a vendor, are you asking the questions of what does the product roadmap look like? What does the product team look like? How many people are actually looking at the product? How many people are talking to customers and seeing what's next in this product? If that answer is not convincing, right now you may have a good vendor for today, but there is a very, very high chance that that vendor, if it's not investing and innovating, is not going to be the right vendor in months time or a year time, in my opinion.
That's excellent. I mean, Carlos, you've fallen into my trap in that you've now put questions to me I can put back to you. What are you most excited for in the MBAT roadmap in future?
Yeah, it's a great question, and for me, I think our sort of development efforts and innovation efforts are really focused on two key areas. The first area again is the connectivity among systems. So accounting, sort of the Microsoft interface, banks, the way we communicate with banks, then the way we can now receive and send information in real time. The new use cases that emerge from that. This is our key focus. So strategically, we are investing a lot on building the latest connectivity or the latest technology that allows us to access data and to move data real time and to reconcile data real time and to allow our clients really to have traceable data and to have a real time monitoring of all of that critical data. So that's one of the things. And on top of that, really reinventing how most of these processes that treasury teams have done for years now are impacted with this. So as we said before, the forecasting process having real-time data is impacted, cash optimization processes, intercompany processes, risk management processes. So all of the stack or the value stack that we've built on top of our system to allow customers, as we incorporate new ways of gathering data and new connectivity, they all get impacted, and we are sort of reevaluating how that can interact. And then obviously we cannot sort of have a webinar on 2025 without talking about AI. But definitely, I truly think that AI is critical in treasury. I mean, I can think of probably a sector within the finance team that is more impacted by AI than what treasury is, and this is primarily because of two factors. First factor is there's a bunch of volume, right? Like the as soon as a company becomes relatively sort of mid market or plus, there's a bunch of transactions in all of their banks. There's many banks, and humans, we are terrible at reviewing a bunch of information and processing a bunch of information and trying to extract useful information from a big data set, right? We cannot extract if it's normal or not normal to receive a transaction or not, because there's probably thousands of transactions, and the one that is not the one that you actually have to focus your attention on is in the middle of many transactions, and you cannot actually identify it, right? So having many transactions, and then secondly, treasury processes are fully human in the loop processes, right? Like there's many things that we call that tell me, which is our AI analyst does on a silent mode, but there's always a final validation of the customer, which inherently takes probably one of the key risks of AI, which is, there always has to be the validation. It's hard for me to think that a treasurer is going to allow AI autonomously to do certain processes, given that these processes are so critical. So we have two very, very good variables. On one side, a lot of volume, hard for humans to process, easy for AI to do that work and really provide insight. And on the other side, human in the loop processes typically that remove the initial uncertainty of all of these processes because there's always sort of a validation phase. So that's why it's very important, I think, for us systems that actually try to optimize or to automate these processes, to really remember how the process works and where AI fits in. It's not that the AI kills the whole process, is that AI is useful in certain part of the processes, but you still need critical stages that you used to have in the process prior to potentially including AI in the process.
Awesome. So you maintain human control, you automate as much as you can. And I think we saw as well in the previous webinar, in terms of setting up the data sources for the AI to kind of begin running through those processes and those workflows, to literally a few clicks.
Yeah.
I'm conscious of time and starting to doubt my my internet stability. So we'll probably move to wrap up at this point. But Carlos, one last kind of question I wanted to put to you. Could you talk a little bit about how you work in a partner industry and how you engage with some of the partners in the market to ultimately deliver MBAT and great solutions to the end customers?
Yeah, it's a great question, and we've kind of placed a very long-term and strategic bet on partners. We've realized the real value that they bring to customers. We really value the long-term and trustful relationship they build with customers. And we, as a software, we sometimes kind of really want to be part of that relationship, and really want to, when we meet a new customer or where we approach a new opportunity, really make sure that we are sort of blessed, or that we come with the partner, because it just completely changes the dynamic of how it's called, right? So I think what really differentiates us is we are looking for long-term relationships with partners. We know that partner relationships take time. Partners have spent a lot of significant effort in building their relationships with customers, in maintaining their customer bases, in really becoming experts in what they actually advise customers in. So we kind of want to lever that sort of trustful relationship they have, but on the other side, we also want to make sure that we are worth that relationship, and that partners are comfortable bringing us into the party. So we do long-term relationship with them, and very importantly, we always remain very active when it comes to client relationships. So we never leave our partners alone. What we always actually very proactively tell them is, please involve us in the conversations as soon as there's complex treasury processes, and as soon as there are questions that you believe we can add value. Our team is always available to meet the client with you, understand the client need, and really give you a very, very transparent sort of analysis if this exact opportunity is something where MBAT can bring value, or if this is an opportunity that doesn't really make sense for us. Probably at the beginning, that means that we lose a couple of opportunities, and that could squeeze a couple of opportunities more in our pipeline. But the reality is that long term and midterm, we've seen that pays off. So we are more looking for those long term and more entrenched partnerships, where we are more than just a software. We are part of their team to really enhance their core values, to really enhance their offering, and really help them provide that value to the customer. And yeah, excited, to be honest, to be part of this network, and obviously to try to meet as many partners as possible, to see if they kind of are aligned with that strategy and how we want to deliver value to the customers.
Brilliant. Thank you, Carlos. Please do, if you are viewing this webinar either live or on demand, check out MBAT. They are on the Guide 365 platform. Please do get in touch at the email below. We would love to engage with you, and we'd love to spread the word about this very, very exciting treasury solution.
Amazing.
Brilliant. Carlos, thank you for your time today. Greatly appreciated, and looking forward to having you on again in future.
Great, thank you very much. I really appreciate the time, and again, super happy to collaborate with Seer, and hopefully this is the beginning of many interactions together. Thank you very much, Rufus.
Wonderful. Thank you, Carlos.
Thanks. Ciao.
Bye.